I think my cat. Ow! As I'm writing a story about a poor broken-winged fairy, my cat goes and finds this poor, defenseless little butterfly. Off we go. Hello. Welcome to my personal project, Marshtown. If you don't know anything about Marshtown, you can click the card above or the link in the description to find out more about it. My name is Nicholas, and today I'm going to be talking about story. I'm going to try and get a first draft of the story done today. I have quite a lot of it written, and there's some empty spaces that need to be filled in. What I have is a number of notebooks. So I have these smaller ones that I carry around with me. I take one to work, I take one if I go to a pub, I have one in a car, obviously not if I'm driving the car, if I'm a passenger. Anytime that an idea comes to me, these little notebooks are great for jotting down the story. Also, obviously, mobile phone notepad apps, use those. And then I have these larger ones that I have dotted around in the rooms of my house. So if something comes up to me when I'm in bed or sitting on the sofa watching a TV show, I've got these ones. So what I would like to do is to get all of that information that's sort of dotted around here and there, different bits of different chapters, and get them all on this document. I'm just going to get my mobile phone out here and show you a bit of my setup, if you're interested at all. There's me. And over here I've got, this is a tablet holder, so I don't know if I can do this with one hand. If I take that out there, what I'm going to do is put my sketchbook in there, if that works. Hey, there we go. So you're going to see me looking over here at my sketchbook and putting all this information over here with my keyboard. This is why it clicks about so much, by the way, because it's I like chunky keys. Okay, so that's enough of that. I want you to bear in mind while I write this that I'm not a professional writer and I'm not writing a book as such. This is for an animation project. I wanted to animate my own story, so the first step is to write the story. I could spend years trying to become a novelist. That's not my goal. So you may see things that you think could be done better. Just bear in mind that this is for an animation project. But I'm going to do my best here to write something interesting. So, darkness filled the sky. A blanket of pure black. In the distance, a small flicker of light bounces through the clouds. Then all is dark again, until another flicker and another. Small sparks of energy Small sparks of energy travelling through puffy clusters of vapour, until finally it is returned with a vibrating band of opposing energy and a shrieking and a screeching shriek. I found that a bit of a tongue twister, that one. You might see as we go through this is some of it I've gone into a lot of detail describing things, and some of them are just notes that I've just dashed down as quick as I could on a lunch break or in between a pint of beer at a pub. So yeah, there's going to be varying levels of descriptions here. Some of them are going to be very brief, some of them are going to go into detail like this. But after this draft is done, and I'm happy with it and I've made all the adjustments, then we're going to be coming over here and putting it in a script form. So this is what we're going to be using when we do our storyboarding. We're going to probably be referring to the script, which is going to be a broken down version of the story. This is kind of to get my imagination flowing, and I can pull out the most important parts and put it in this script here. And you know, it's just part of the process. I'm trying to follow a process. Usually you'd have a big team of people doing each part and passing it on to the next person, but I'm doing every part and passing it on to myself.
Eerie. How do you spell eerie?
Oh, okay. Spittles of rain fall from a torn cloud, and opposing flashes of light and pulsating blasts continue to battle each other, each time the second releasing a high-pitched yell until they collide, and a deafening cry is followed by eerie silence. Something starts to fall, at first slowly, then picking up speed, a small silhouette of a girl plummets through the clouds towards the ground below. And that is all I have for that part of the story. And let me just check through this book, and I think that is all. The rest of it is character notes and different ideas. Obviously there's a lot of notes on here because this is always in my pocket, so I can pull it out whenever. Okay, so on here I've got a fight is taking place in the clouds at night. Flashes of magic in the clouds. Something falls through the clouds towards the bog swamp. I mean, this is probably how the script's going to look. It falls into the muddy water. Okay, so we'll go from here. So I'm using silhouette here because I'm saving the reveal of how she looks. Maybe I'll write shadow there just for a bit of variety. Something starts to fall, at first slowly, then picking up speed. A small silhouette of a girl plummets through the clouds towards the ground below. A muddy bog breaks the shadow's fall, hitting the thick water like a speeding meteor. Splash! Okay. A mud-drenched fairy emerges from the swamp. Crawling along the reeds and A mud-drenched fairy emerges from the swamp. Crawling along the weeds and the reeds, she realizes that she has injured one of her wings and cannot fly. She finds herself caught in the twigs and the branches and discards her ruined clothing, but there is enough mud to cover her modesty. We'll see later. She's going to make some clothes out of flowers and push her feet through, and that will be her look from there on. There's not going to be really any nudity. She's going to be covered in mud. Peering through the foliage and plants, she sees in the distance a house built into a tree. A hoverfly lands on a plant near her. It is attracted to her and the smells from the bog that have covered her head to toe. It buzzes around her, annoying her, getting her a little panicky. She swashes her arms around trying to get rid of it, and all of a sudden, a great tongue whips out and makes her jump. It snatches the hoverfly from her quick as lightning, as she sees a great toad swallowing the pest. I want to have a little bit of fun with this toad. I think that toads, they're always trying to eat hoverflies and butterflies and things like that, so we could have a bit of fun with this. Now here's an example of the different kind of writing styles that are going to be put into this, and then I'm maybe going to have to think about changing the way it's written. When I wrote this, as she walks away, we see it in the background slowly turning its head. Now I'm thinking visually, that's what's going to be on the screen. You wouldn't write that in a novel, obviously. My shoulder's kind of blocking it a bit, isn't it? Yeah, you wouldn't write it like this if you were writing a book, obviously. But those are my notes, so I think the first part of it is to get all of my notes in one place. That's the most important part. And here, on my notes, I even have a camera direction. I think that maybe I meant a zoom out there. So I'm going to change that to zoom out, because a pan would, in my mind, we go left, we go right, we go up, we go down. That we're following her shoulder height. So like me now. And then as we zoom out, and then we see just here, the frog has actually followed her. Okay, so there are a lot of camera directions here. I feel like I can now bring this back and full screen this. There we go. Right, so we start with a cut up, close to shoulder high, of her walking away. Then she stops walking and looks nervous. She slowly turns and we zoom out to see a toad behind her. So there's a cut and a zoom. She waddles forward slightly. It waddles forward, slightly blinking its bulging eyes. So it's going to sort of just do a bit of that. She slowly takes a step forward, and so does the toad. Then she suddenly starts to sprint as best she can, but she's still hurt and has a slight limp. And here's where another camera direction comes in. She hops and runs towards the camera, and the toad hops along with the tent. So she's going to run past like that, and then the toad is going to come after her. I'm thinking that this nicely written version of the story could give me some space to write about how she's thinking and feeling, and what kind of panic is going on, if her heart's pounding. And those could be things that I could try and show in the facial emotions. She eventually outruns the toad. After a few whips of the tongue, tapped her shoulder and back a few times. So I could elaborate on that a bit more. She's going to be running away, and this toad's leaping after her and trying to catch her with her tongue or knock her over or whatever. So she's constantly getting flicked around the back of the ear or whatever with this tongue. That could be. I'm trying to put a little bit of excitement into the first few minutes of the story, because a lot of the story for the first part is a lot of this chapter 1, Ogrod and Celeste, is going to be fairly sort of relaxed. They're going to be, going back to the painting that I did, going back to this painting, which is where everything started. This is where the whole idea came from, and you can see it's just a fairy and a gnome having tea. There's not a great deal of exciting things going on in this, so I wanted to start it off with a bit of a bang, and this is how I thought. She's had a fight in the clouds with something. She's fallen down, she's covered in mud. There's a toad, there's a hoverfly buzzing around her, then a toad's chasing her. It's just one thing after the other. And then eventually we'll have a break and it will all chill out a bit. But at least you've got something exciting happening. Right, eventually she outruns the toad. After a few whips of the tongue, tap her shoulder and back a few times. See, I don't like the writing here because I've got eventually, a few. A number of times. At last. Okay, that's better. She eventually outruns the toad after a few whips of the tongue, tap her shoulder and back a number of times. The toad at last gives up its pursuit. She reaches for a wand. I don't know why she didn't do that with the toad, but maybe she was just too panicked to think about it. But this time she's got time to think. She reaches for her wand. But it is broken. She limps on, finds herself walking straight into another threat. A huge predatory owl. Predatory. Oh no, I've put that in the wrong place. She limps on and finds herself walking straight into another threat, a huge predatory owl. She reaches for her wand, but there is nothing there. It is lost. Ah, my wand, she exclaims. Maybe she can go back and try and find that later on. I'll put a little note here. Dollar, pound. I want that one. That's the one I wanted. Right, okay. Yep, and I'll highlight that as well. There. The huge bird flaps its wings and tries to claw and grab her with its sharp talons. And she ducks and shifts side to side, trying to avoid capture. Well, it hits bushes and makes lots of noise. This is heard by the resident of the treehouse. I mean, I don't want to call it a treehouse because it's not a treehouse. The house. Inside the house, asleep in an armchair, pipe in mouth, Ogrod is awoken by the noise and commotion outside. Startled from a dream, his pipe lands into his lap, and he grunts in annoyance as he slowly rises from his wooden chair. So we're introducing the gnome now, which is the other character in, obviously, this picture. Keep him in silhouette. So we're using the same tactic that we used with the fairy. We're going to keep him mostly in shadow. There's going to be some nice rim lighting around him because he's sat in front of a fireplace. Which I didn't write, did I? Sleep in an armchair by his fireplace. There we go. Keep him mostly in silhouette. It says, so maybe we'll see some features. Mostly in silhouette. Use fireplace for light source. So I mean, yeah, you could have a bright fire here, and then, you know, a dark silhouette of a figure. That's how it would appear. Shadow. He approaches the bog and looks around, but he cannot see what had riled up the bird. Celeste is a little afraid and chooses not to speak because compared to her, he is tall and in shadow. He goes back inside and she follows slowly and carefully. He climbs a window where a basket of flowers hang. Ogrod's garden is full of flowers and plants, and a walkway to the front door is bordered by stones and foliage. She hides behind the plants. She is still caked in mud, which makes her hard to see among the soil and the flowers in the basket. He opens the window, but does not see her. Well, he looks down. Maybe he sees her, maybe he doesn't. We're not quite sure. Going to build up some tension. So I've got another camera direction written down on my notes here. So that says cut back and forth. Cut back and forth between the two characters to create a tense atmosphere. So some reaction shots, some close-up face shots of his eyes like searching around, and her sort of startled, like, oh my, is he looking at me? Can he see me? His hand. Let's change that. Oh, my typing's a bit. So his hand reaches out for something out of sight. So, you know, maybe his hands are up here, and it sort of goes down there, and you think, well, is he reaching for a weapon, something to swat her with? And it comes back holding a watering can, and you realise he was looking at the flowers, and he starts watering the flowers. And the water goes on to Celeste, and then she showers, washes off all the mud. And I'm not going to be crude about that, you know. I'm not going to have jiggly boob physics going on or anything like that. I'll try and keep it classy. But that's when he sees her. So now that she's not covered in camouflaging mud, like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Predator film, now he can see her. So then he sees her. And as I was saying before, now you can see that my notes aren't written all fancy like a novel. They're just notes now. But as I said, maybe I can tidy them up a bit, make them a bit nicer. But the main mission is to get that information down as quickly as possible. So shoes are away, and he says, "Go on, get out of here." He's not pleased to see her. Shoos her off like a pest. I think my cat... Ow! Fuck's sake! Right, what's she got? It's okay, it's okay. And look what she's found. As I'm writing a story about a poor broken-winged fairy, my cat goes and finds this poor defenseless little butterfly. Off we go. Ever so sorry about that. My cat likes to bring things into the house. You know what cats are like. Anyway, I rescued it, so it's fine now. Okay, right, drop my keyboard and everything. What a nightmare. Right, go on, get out of here, he says. He waves his hand and knocks her off the basket. She grabs a stem from a lady's schmock, which is an English flower, I'll talk about that later, in the basket as she falls, but it bends and snaps in the middle, coming down with her towards the floor. And she scrambles with the flower for shelter under a giant mushroom. Hiding under the mushroom, she is very cold and pushes her feet through the flowers she is still holding on to. Like a lady struggling to push her legs into a pair of tights, she wraps her top with a strange leaf nearby and ties it all off with the stem. So we'll see, that sounds like a complicated animation. We'll see about how we'll get that done. Right, now my notes get very sketchy, so now I've just got, she has a nightmare flashback. Nightmare flashback scene of a fight in the clouds revealed some jump scare close-ups of a humanoid raven. So the stuff that's going on in the clouds, we're going to reveal it piece by piece as the story goes along. And you're going to find out a little bit more about that each time. The next morning she wakes from the nightmare and climbs on top of the mushroom. Ogre can see her from his window and he's starting to feel sorry for her. He walks over to her with an acorn and a kettle. After pulling the top off the acorn, he fills it with tea from the kettle. No, he doesn't. He places it beside her in the mushroom and fills it with tea from the kettle. And now we have reached the point of this. We are finally there. This is where everything started, and now that scene is happening. And now we have some dialogue. So I'm going to use a C for Celeste and an O for Ogrod. The tea is bitter and it makes goodness. This tea is bitter. What kind is it? Nettle. Don't like it. Don't drink it. Haven't decided on my voice. It's going to be a grumpy voice. Realising that she has offended him, she tries a second sip. Actually, it quite grows on you. A grunt that implies he knows she is lying. Right, and this is where I have a big space. So in here I've got lots of ideas. I haven't chosen what ideas I want to put in. So I'm going to right here. I'm gonna put this here and highlight this. Then we have another space. That is everything from the mobile phone, which is where most of the information was. Now let me see if there's anything remaining on other notepads. So that's where we are in the story so far. There's some blank spaces to fill and the end needs to be finished off. It will end with her leaving. Let me bring the map up actually. This is where we are at the moment. Ogrod's house is here, and here is the bog that she falls into and makes her way up here, and then she's sort of hanging around this area. There will be a stream, stenchy stream, like leading from here to the marsh, covered in trees, and she's going to get into some trouble here and make her way to eventually to a wizard's house over here who's going to help her out. So that's where the story for the first part is going to end, is she's going to leave Ogrod and start to make her way over, and that's where we're going to leave off. So, you know, everything in the first part of the story that I'm writing takes place by Ogrod's house, and everything else is set up in case I want to continue at the end of that project, of that first part. As I've said in other videos, I'm doing everything from writing the story to the storyboards to the animation to the music to getting the voice recordings, the field recordings, video editing it all together. These are all things that I enjoy doing, and I'm trying to bring them all together in one project. But that project could take 2, 3, 4, 5 years of my life. So I'm just going to have to see how I feel at the end of that, whether I want to commit to another extended time period on the same project, or if I want to move on. We'll see how it goes, and also how it's received. If people are into it, I'm probably going to want to do another one. If it just ends up being something for me, then there's really no commitment for me to carry on. We'll see how it goes. That isn't a cry for likes and shares and anything like that. No, I just want, I'm just saying that if there's a demand, if people want to see more, then I'm more likely to make more of it. That's all. Anyway, I hope that you've found some of this interesting. And I hope to share more with you at a later time, and I hope you have a great day, a productive day, and a creative day. Bye.